two bullies suddenly discovered something terrible. Lightning struck the village in a strange way. He was carrying a gun before he died, that he tied himself tightly to the electricity tower with a belt. The strange thing is that the electricity had not been turned off. After all, 220 electric power is not dead. 250 electricity. That old man was actually dead. And that strange incident recently, it appeared in the closed city. Some couples are wild camping, get ready to enjoy spring and summer. The camping lights suddenly went out. The old man thought it was a broken generator. So he was in a hurry to check the light, but before he could get close, he was confused. The entire generator disappeared. He wanted to draw a little on the electric wire, but the next moment the generator actually came straight out of the ground. But these two people were very scared. In a hurry to flee the scene, but at this time, the old man accidentally fell into a deep pit. With a little strength, his feet were buried in the ground. The old woman does not give up and continues to use her hands to move the sand, but the next moment, something terrible emerged from the ground. The old woman was frightened. The old woman somehow got into the car. The monster is stopped outside. The old woman can't leave even if she can't find the car. But looking at the lost monster, he can finally breathe for a long time. But suddenly the car suddenly changed direction. What is that? Not long after the two disappeared, the Nyozai brothers came to the door and accidentally found a car that had been hidden. Even though they were scared, the two people with great nerve did not move out of the way. They thought the car had been swallowed by the sand. This is nothing new in the neighboring desert, but when the two of them turned around and went to another neighbor's house, they suddenly saw that the entire Yangxian had been destroyed, that it's all cracked and broken from the inside. And what's even more terrifying is that they found the owner of the farm in the middle of the field, but only one mind remains. Now the two finally realize that a terrible monster has appeared in the small town. They hurriedly fired their beloved long-range cannon back to warn the villagers, and on the road, the workers told them to repair the road. There are monsters around. They must be extremely careful, but they never thought that an accident would happen as soon as they left. The man wanted to go home as soon as possible. Unexpectedly, a strange sound came from underground, and a lot of blood came out. And the next second, a long-range cannon ran up like a leg. What happened after that person responded? Unexpectedly, the can suddenly stuck to his right foot, and in that instant, it flew away at high speed. As he hurriedly arrived, his friend hit him, but after falling from the mountain, he was sent west. This time, a pickup truck passed by, and the road was blocked and unable to go. Dashan and Chianga hurriedly got out of the car and checked the situation. Chianga suddenly saw a blood-stained safety cap on a broken stone. The two frightened people immediately realized that something was wrong. Then they planned to quickly get into the car and return on the original route, but unexpectedly, the car suddenly crashed into the mountain behind. Dashan hit a foot above the ground and moved forward. Who knew that there was no movement at all when he stepped on the tire smoke? As an experienced driver, Dashan has never encountered such a strange situation. Fortunately, he was scared. The vehicle finally got out of trouble and drove off. When they returned to the city, they hurriedly told the villagers what had just happened. Who knew that there was a little girl next door? Suddenly I saw something strange under the car, and all he saw was a huge animal trapped in the sea air. To say that this thing is like a snake. The whole body is light and there are no limbs. It's hard to say, but this is clearly a dry road. A few days ago I thought about the sheep in the flock. They all died suddenly from the gas. The sheep owner also died mysteriously in the high-pressure tower. So everyone wanted to get him out and see what was going on. However, something strange happened. This monster is clearly dead, but his mouth is still bitten by the bottom of the car. Finally they managed to get the monster out of the car. I looked at it carefully and found that this thing doesn't look like anything living on Earth. After seeing something wrong, Dashan wanted to call the police and ask for help, but he found that his phone had no signal. It seems they can only go to the police in person to explain the situation, but they drove halfway, and they discovered that the only way out of the city was blocked by a giant snake. They had no choice but to return. Who knew what happened that night? A couple was on a date at night under the moonlight. Suddenly, all the street lights went out without warning. The man quickly took out his flashlight and checked the line, but the strange thing is that the entire head of the lamp disappeared without a trace. Only one wire remained outside. After the sound of the commotion, the electric light was suddenly pulled from the ground by something. The two of them suddenly became scared. Before they could escape, that man had been bitten by something. The man hurriedly tried to pull him out with his sword. He heard the sound of kicking. The man's legs were directly swallowed by the light. And then he was knocked down again. Most of his body had disappeared. The woman got scared and went outside and found a piece of wood. The man tried to hold it for himself in front of the man, but that monster was very strong. The man finally slowly disappeared into the sand. It didn't even look like the monster had eaten anything. But then the woman started attacking him again. He hid in the car in fear. He only became a hermit some time later. The moment when the woman thought she was safe, the monster suddenly dragged the car to the ground. I don't care. However, things are not over yet. Everyone here still doesn't know what happened. Also, the road out of the small town is blocked by mountains. Now they can only wait until morning to think of other ways. This time, Prakash said that there were many horses in the shop. As long as someone can ride a horse, they can leave here to find a savior, and this glorious work soon. Dashan and Brother Chang were attacked. Time is short and the work is heavy. There was no choice but to agree with Dashan and Brother Chang. The next morning, the sky was just setting. Everyone was ready to go with horses and spears. The men's guns and the women's guns were responsible for the security of the city. Well, I found their friend Kuehua. This proved to be a false alarm. This time, all the hope of the city to Shan and Brother Chang were handed over. The two of them didn't wait any longer. Then, in the eyes of everyone, they mounted their horses and rode away quickly, and Kuehua's house the way they left the city was the same, but when those two arrived here, they found Kuehua missing. But strangely, their car was still here. As they moved forward, Dashan suddenly kicked a piece of iron board to the ground. When he opened it, he saw ICAR. That time they felt Kuehua and his wife were poisoned by a demon. They realized that they were afraid of two monsters, and they didn't dare wait any longer. They moved forward quickly. Who knew that in the next second, their horses seemed to be suffering some kind of big shock. Both of them fell off their horses at once. They didn't wait to find out what was happening. The ground beneath their feet suddenly it started to slowly burst. The two of them were confused and hid to one side. Suddenly, a big thing it came suddenly. Then, they opened their mouths and came towards them. Deshaun hit the ground and retreated. By shooting him continuously. The monster suffered and immediately fell back to the ground. He was about to chase them down. Those two were afraid. The hat was also blown off. Seeing the monster approaching, they quickly jumped into a nearby deep water hole. I thought I was going to die this time. Unexpectedly, that monster was very scary. And the next second, the two of them crashed into a stone wall, and there was no trick. However, they didn't wait for the two of them to rest. Xiao Mei reminded them that there were 3 such demons. The two of them didn't dare to rush. Take away from the scene. Unexpectedly, they had just returned to the city. The monster followed them. The shop owner died on the spot. Then, after careful observation, they discovered that these monsters there were no eyes. They all relied on sound to locate the target. So, everyone had to hide on the roof, and it made everyone escape temporarily for a while. But Deshaun, who knew that the monster was in danger, was not happy at all. Because that monster is already surrounded them. If they can't find a way out of here as soon as possible, even if they are not eaten by monsters, sooner or later they would starve to death at home. This time, suddenly they remembered a flying machine that wasn't too far away. Thinking that this machine is at least tens of tons heavy, that monster must have been surprised. So, they used a remote control car to lure the monster away. Then, Deshaun rushed towards the flying machine, but he only ran half of it. The remote controlled car suddenly overturned. The demon's sword immediately turned towards the running Deshaun. He was about to be arrested. Xiao Mei hurriedly tried not to make a sound. Deshaun suddenly stopped and held his breath. That monster had lost its target. Then, Xiao Mei stepped back for a moment. The sound of Huahua's water successfully attracted the monster, but the plan was still an accident. As they left the small town, their car was caught